Mr. Speaker, thank you. The theme of this presentation is that education adds value to lives. Now, last year was a good year for education, and this year is going to be even a better one. I speak highly, first of all, of the acumen and dedication of the staff of the Ministry of Education and its regions, the board members, the executives and staff of the 19 agencies of the ministry. They all deserve thanks and commendation. And this evening, Mr. Speaker, I reach out to every teacher and principal in every school in Jamaica. It has been a good year of partnership with the Jamaica Teachers Association. Some wags expected us to fight. We decided to cooperate. And we're doing our best within the education budget to find ways to improve the lot of teachers, even as the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service deliberates on the wage arrangements. Who said voluntarism was dead in this country, Mr. Speaker? Witness the almost 1,000 chairmen and members of school boards who act voluntarily. I pay them due respect. To parents yearning for better for their children, the ministry wishes to be at your service, even as we call on you to devote more time, more effort to your children's education, especially the fathers of our children. And I hail the myriad alumni groups here and far, the collaboration of increasing numbers of the private sector who add significantly to the government's spend on education. Mr. Speaker, have regard to the members of the Homewood High School and the Trenchtown High School who came from abroad on their own funds just to pay increased attention to and be concerned of their school's progress. Think of the alumni at Cornwall, at Jamaica College, at Wolmer's, at St. George's, and all the others who contribute so heavily, millions of dollars, to the upkeep of their schools. Teaching and learning and training demand everyone's input. And I appreciate the interest of the opposition in education too. We're building largely on what they attempted. Let us continue to believe and act on the principles that education is too important to be the subject of partisan scrapping. And Mr. Speaker, zeal for education is the best surviving manifestation of the national movement. And finally, in this, I salute the sponsors and the owners and operators of our 600+ independent schools and the churches, which for generations and even now own and contribute to more than 40% of our schools. Mr. Speaker, if I were preparing a report card for the education system, I would comment at the bottom, improved performance, but more is expected. The first year, we assessed and converted the enterprise to a data-driven venture. In 2013, we called for action, reform action, on all school fronts. And in 2014, we sharpened that focus towards student achievement. That's what matters. And this year, we report on the transformative initiatives underway and assess how we can intensify their impact. Mr. Speaker, how we are adding value to lives. We're doing things differently at the Ministry of Education now, you know, sir. We have a fresh look at everything we've always done, letting outcomes, not habit, determine future direction, looking at the long term rather than responding to the crises of every day. Education is a primary ingredient of economic development. None of the excellent plans set out this evening in this debate and previously are going to work unless Jamaicans are well educated. Education is the kernel of the renaissance in our society. Sure, it takes time to show results, to add value. Remember, Barry Chavans once chanted, "Revolution take a year or two." Education, the love and persistence and pursuit of knowledge and skills are what it takes to make us great. And we're inviting this Parliament this afternoon and the nation too to hold us accountable for progress and what we said we would do. The Jamaican people, after all, are in the midst of a quantum shift as to how we educate, how rethinking what the purposes of education are and how each dollar is spent and how each effort adds value. To sum up the performance of the education system during the past 3 years, I draw members' attention to the document. I believe it's being or has been circulated to you. It's entitled Achievements in Education. Between January 2012 and March 2015, in the area of early childhood education, that crucial beginning of the process. First of all, I express appreciation to the work of the Early Childhood Commission. It has been received high approbation from the United Nations, from UNESCO, and elsewhere. And we identified 4 areas of concentration for the kindergarten to grade 3 cohort. And I'm reporting on the progress in these areas. First, we have integrated more than 230 basic schools into infant departments in primary schools where there's space, exceeding the target of 200 set last year. And the rationalization process will continue apace during this year. At least another 250 inadequate basic schools will be merged or upgraded to infant status. Next, we have fulfilled last year's target of hiring 200 early childhood trained teachers through the JEEP and 40 others permanently, thereby providing 480 basic schools with access to trained teachers. Each trained teacher is committed to serve 2 schools. An additional 400 basic schools are projected to be so supplied this year. And if we are resolute and prudent, by 2017-2018, every infant school and department will have access to trained teachers. Compare this from where we're coming from, Mr. Speaker. This is adding value. Third, we are on track to meet the target of providing breakfast to 138,000 children. As at December 2014, we have been providing 126,000 children at the early childhood level with breakfast and lunch. And I offer kudos to the Transformed Nutrition Products Limited and also to countless teachers, parents, and others who multiply loaves and fishes to make sure that children get something to eat. The provision of the breakfast and lunch program for our little ones is going to cost us $2.2 billion this year. But this is money well spent. While we help those who really can't help themselves, we need to make the point that it's the responsibility of parents, not government, to feed their children properly. But even so, we do know that 30 to 50% of our early childhood cohort come to school hungry. And we observe that attendance drops 10% or more on the days when food is not provided. The challenge of the nation is that 3 days can't cut it anymore. Many children need food every day. Our target this year is to spend about 20% of the school feeding budget of nearly $5 billion on locally grown fruits, vegetables, tubers, eggs, and other proteins. We're coming from 0 use of local produce, Mr. Speaker, and in 3 years we aim to get to 50%. The ministry will, of course, continue providing lunch for the almost 150,000 students on PATH at the primary and secondary schools, and we're making a provision for assisting another 50,000 other students who are deemed to be at risk. With parental contributions where possible, the entire school feeding effort will be a costly but well-used enterprise. Following the 15% raise last year, we will further increase the allowance paid to early childhood practitioners, scandalously low up to now, by another 15% in 2 tranches during the next calendar year. This will be done from the better spending of existing funds. We are keeping our promises to them because they will add value. Mr. Speaker, everyone remembers that recently the nation enacted a Disability Act, and the education system must comply with its terms. Young people with special needs comprise 15 to 20% of our school population, and almost 300 children had to be assisted through the grade 6 achievement test. One at the Bustamante Children's Hospital who took the exam from his bed. Parents of children with special needs, you don't need to keep them away anymore. Bring them come to school. They too must have a chance to have value added to their lives. And I need to tell you that a child find in 2014, which selected almost 8,000 behaviorally and academically challenged children, has substantiated our worst fears. You know, it's the first time we've really looked at the special needs cohort for 36 years in this country, Mr. Speaker. Well, we've done it now. And the latest findings indicate that 30+% of those students are in the borderline level of functioning, while 60% were evaluated at extremely low intellectual functioning. And there's a ministry paper on that we would like to draw your attention to. Well, Mr. Speaker, we've stopped just finding out data and not doing much about it. The fierce urgency of now, remember that? Requires positive responses, not the helplessness and the resignation of the past. So we've established a diagnostic and therapy clinic at Vouch for preschool children, and we're going to do another one like that in Savannah Lamar in partnership with the Rock House Foundation. And speaking of partnerships, do you know that Rock House Foundation, a little hotel, they've contributed more than $300 million to early childhood education over the last 10 years. That's the kind of partnership and help we need. Michael Care Center has established a new branch in Port Antonio, and we'll soon open centers in Montego Bay and Manchester and Mandeville as well. There are 20 pull-out centers already in our primary schools to deal with some behavioral problems, and 30 new ones this year. There are 6 mobile clinics to support other children, and we're training 250 special education teachers. In the future, all trainee teachers will receive special education training, without which they must not be certified. Mr. Speaker, if I turn to primary education, we are seeing improvement in education outcomes. At the international level, Jamaica moved up 41 places to 87 last year in the Global Competitive Index for primary education enrollment. We achieved improvement in student performance in the grade 6 achievement test. 98% of the students were placed in high schools, and approximately 75% were placed in one of their preferred schools. The current literacy mastery level at grade 4 is 77.5%. This is 7% plus below the national target. But you know, Mr. Speaker, we are avid and committed to making the necessary changes so that we do make that target this year. Primary school principals and teachers, supported by the ministry, are applying strategies to ensure that students perform optimally. Take, for example, what leadership can do, sir. Mrs. Prim Lewis at the Schoolfield Primary School, I think it's in northeastern St. Elizabeth. Yes, a grade 4 literacy improvement under her leadership in 18 months from 33% to 78%. It can be done.